Hello, everybody. Jonathan Pulley here with West Coast Weather. Today is October 20th, and we're going to talk about the upper level low that's going to move over Oregon and California in the next day or so. And then we're going to take a look at the upcoming pattern change later next week. Some more storm systems looking the move in the area. And it also looks like some pretty cold air is going to start moving down over the Pacific Northwest with a modified Arctic front. No lowland snow is expected with this, but our first good amount of mountain snows look to be expected, and way cooler temperatures than what we've been getting the last few weeks. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Right now we're looking at the geocolor satellite imagery of the eastern Pacific Ocean. Here's Washington, Oregon, California, British Columbia, Alaska's all the way up here. Down here is Major Hurricane Norma. That's going to start affecting the southern Baja California coastline. It is actually starting up right now, and then it's a weekend to a tropical storm, and then go into the western coast of Mexico down there. So not really going to affect the west coast at all. You can also see up here as the day wears on and the sun strengthens, you can see the little fog in the valley starting to evaporate. And you can also see that the fog on the coast is moving offshore, but the clouds up above the fog is moving onshore. So this is a cool example of how wind speeds can change with height, and there's layers in the atmosphere. And then this storm system right here is going to start affecting mostly Oregon and California this weekend, but it may also bring a few isolated showers up to western Washington as well. So now let's look at the general ridge and trough position. This is this morning's European model. As we see right now, it's mostly dry weather over a lot of the west coast. A pretty decent sized ridge is dominating. And then as we move into tomorrow and Sunday, this upper level low starts moving in over Oregon and California, bringing the chances of some rain all the way down to the Bay Area. And then it kind of opens up all the way down to Baja California, bringing the jet stream all the way down there. And then you can see on the European model, this is about Tuesday evening next week. You can see this low that's starting to move out of the north. This is going to be associated with our cold air coming out of the north. And the models are really disagreeing on where this exactly is going to set up shop. The European model kind of weakens it and kind of brings it into British Columbia, brings like almost sort of an atmospheric river to the south of it over some parts of the Pacific Northwest and Southwest BC. And then it kind of gets absorbed into this greater trough over the northern Canada. And then it kind of just swings off to the east. And then a ridge builds in, and then maybe some the Gulf of Alaska troughing at the end of the model run. Now let's see what the GFS is showing. Ridge over the west coast, upper level low goes over Oregon and California, opens all the way over the Baja California. But then look in the Pacific Northwest, look at how the trough opens up on the GFS. The European model had this little tiny trough that kind of goes into BC. The GFS opens up this pretty deep, cold trough right off the Oregon-Washington coast and goes right down over the Pacific Northwest. This would be kind of a drier solution because it really spends a lot of time over land and doesn't really strengthen until it's right on the coast. And there's going to be some wind potential for some areas as well if a storm system can form offshore with this low. This would bring a pretty large shot of cold air into the region, and it kind of has a back building on the end of there. It kind of meanders and then moves away, and then the ridge builds in, which is kind of similar to what the European model was showing, but this is 10 plus days out, and the disagreement in the short term is already so great. So there's not much to look at this far of a range. Now let's look at when we may expect precipitation. You can see the storm system off the coast right now that's going to affect Oregon and California. That starts moving towards the Pacific Northwest later tomorrow, Saturday evening. Some showers may be over some parts of the central and southern Cascades in Washington. The main low pressure moves in the Oregon and northern California. That kind of weakens, and then the trough moves down. And then as the European model showed, the system moves right to the north and brings this atmospheric river right into Washington. It just kind of continues for like 1 to 2 days. That would bring quite a lot of precipitation. It wouldn't be as cold. We would be on the warmer side until we get into the late next weekend. and then some of the cooler air will move in. This is kind of like a modified Arctic front moving down with Arctic high. And then you can see it kind of dries out, and then maybe another atmospheric river feature off in the distance. Now let's look at the GFS. The upper level low moves in the Oregon and California. And then you can see the GFS is a lot drier. It doesn't really bring an atmospheric river into the area, and drops the storm system right onto the coast. Would bring some windier conditions down there, but really not as much precipitation and mountain snows. And that just kind of cools down, and everything starts moving to either to the north or the south of us. And then we really stay dry for a lot of the rest of the run until more systems start moving in. But this is well over 10 days out, so we'll keep an eye on that later next week. Now let's look at the daily max temperatures. So these are the high temperatures each day. This is for Saturday, tomorrow. Pretty nice day expected tomorrow. Some mid to upper 60s possible for the Willamette Valley. Low to middle 60s for a lot of Western Washington. Unless you're right along the water, then you may have some highs still in the 50s. Some 70s to 80s for parts of the central California valleys. Still plenty hot down south of Death Valley down there. And then as we go into Sunday, we kind of start cooling down, really only 60s over much of the Pacific Northwest. But then the real cool down comes during the middle of the week. Look at this. It's kind of hard to see, but the national blend, this is the national blend of models. It's kind of like an average of a bunch of the main models. So it tends to be a little more accurate when it comes to forecasts. And so it shows the high temperature on Tuesday being only 54 degrees Fahrenheit in over Seattle. And even up near Vancouver, highs only in the upper 40s, the low 50s. Very chilly air. And it stays in the 50s for days on end, all the way through the end of the period. So now let's look at the same model, but this is 2 meter daily minimum temperature. So these are the low temperatures, typically in the early morning hours. You can see really 50s or lows in the 50s are gripping the most of the Pacific Northwest. Still some warmer low temperatures down here in Southern California, but that's kind of typical down there for the desert locations. As we move into Monday and Tuesday, look at lows start getting into the low to mid 40s in Western Washington, 30s, the first 30s of the season, I'm pretty sure, for a lot of Eastern Washington and Eastern Oregon. And then as we go into Wednesday and Thursday of next week, some low temperatures starting to get into the 30s in Western Washington now. And look at this, if we go to the next weekend, looks like some of the first sub-freezing temperatures for Eastern Washington with low temperatures in the 20s possible. So very chilly air. And look at this. If you go east of the Rockies, where the main cold's going to go, low temperatures in the teens out there in lots of Montana and Wyoming and western Idaho. Very cold. And then that really continues on. So now let's look at individual weather stations up and down the West Coast. So this is the Whidbey Island Naval Air Station. This is all 50 ensemble members of the European model. So the control run, which is like the model run that shows what is the most probable outcome that's going to happen, it starts out with the most accurate data we have. So that shows all the way by late next weekend up to 4 inches for Whidbey. It's kind of a really big outlier for that, but you can see that it brings the atmospheric river later next week and bring up the 2 inches in a couple day period. So, and then it's kind of chaotic. You can see that there's a lot of disagreement in the models, even though it's only 4 to 5 days out in this range. There's still a lot of disagreement. And as I was saying before, there is some wind potential as well, mainly for the Northwest Washington, some of the coastal areas. And there's still not very much agreement as well. There's some gusts up to 50 miles per hour possible during the midweek of next week, but really there's plenty of ensemble members that have hardly any winds, so we're just gonna have to keep an eye on that. This is Portland showing that atmospheric river possible, but the GFS doesn't have that as well, so we can't really put much confidence in this. Pretty chaotic though. There's just mix of colors everywhere, which shows that there's a lot of disagreement in what's actually going to happen. So some of the heavier rain, if the atmospheric river solution turned out to be correct, a lot of it would hit parts of Oregon as well. And then let's look at the San Francisco International Airport. Some of the precipitation will also be moving down here. This is Sunday's system and Monday's. The system next week doesn't really show up that much on the European model. There's still some chances that some of the precipitation could get down there, but it just depends on where that troughing really goes. And then maybe some systems, weak systems way off in the distance. And if we look all the way down at the Los Angeles International Airport, really dry down there. Maybe some some light showers moving through. Only some ensemble members even have only 1/10 of an inch or 100th of an inch. So really nothing expected down there. And then here's a nice graphic from the National Weather Service of Spokane. This is for the inland Northwest, and it shows the cooler temperatures starting next week. And look there's some snowflakes even on the forecast for parts of the interior Northwest. So we're going to have to really keep an eye on that. Maybe some of our first winter weather, but really it's fall weather, because over east of the Cascades and especially east of the Rockies, this time of the year they can start getting their first shots of cold air and stuff. So it's still going to be some pretty nice weather today and tomorrow, and then we gradually cool down until next week. And here's a graphic from the National Weather Service of Pendleton, Oregon, showing the warm temperatures today and tomorrow, and then the big cool down next week. And if we go down to the National Weather Service of Medford, Oregon, this is a map of showing the probability of 1/2 inch of rainfall or more within 24 hours. So places like the northwest tip of California and the southwest tip of Oregon, chances over 50% for 1/2 inch of rain in 24 hours this weekend. So a decent amount of rain is going to be possible with this upper level low moving down. And then also the greater area is the central and northern Cascades of Oregon as well. If we go down to Sacramento, California, this is the National Weather Service down there. This is a graphic of showing the total rainfall for the system through Monday. As the other graphic showed, some 1/2 inch totals possible up near north of Eureka, but really the Central Valley is maybe 1/100th of an inch to 1/10 of an inch. Some of the Sierra Nevada mountains getting 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch of rain, so not too much, but still welcome. And then this is the National Weather Service of San Francisco Bay Area. This is just showing that there's a hazardous beach conditions possible today, so just be careful out on the beaches down there in California, because rip currents will be possible today and tomorrow. And then this is the National Weather Service of Los Angeles, high surf with dangerous rip currents today. So be careful if you're down there on the beach, and make sure to not turn your head away from the water for too long. Some parts of the Central Coast may see 10 to 15 foot surf with local sets up to 20 feet. So just make sure that be extra careful, especially on the west and northwest facing beaches. Here's the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This is for October 26th to 30th. This is basically the last week of October, showing below average temperatures as we saw that modified Arctic front is kind of moving down. These probabilities will probably go up as we head into next week, but you can see that they're showing that model disagreement, because they're not showing that much of a great chance of cooler temperatures. And then if we move down to the precipitation outlook, they're kind of agreeing more with the GFS with below average precipitation, but the 26th would also possibly be past where the atmospheric river was on the European model. So that's why they're showing below average temperatures. This can and will probably change as we get closer to the event, but this is what they're forecasting now. Now let's look at the 14-day temperature outlook. This goes all the way in from October 28th to November 3rd, showing around normal to maybe slightly above average temperatures for parts of the Northwest, above average temperatures for much of California, Nevada, and Oregon. There's still a lot of disagreement in this range, so take this with a grain of salt. And then it also shows above average precipitation for much of the West Coast during this time frame, as some of the models were showing some more systems moving through in the Gulf of Alaska. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. And here's a official forecast from the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center. This is the seasonal temperature outlook for winter. They're showing above average temperatures for much of the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast. This is pretty typical during strong El Nino years, which this is will likely be a strong El Nino winter. And you can see they really highlighted that. So warm temperatures obviously means probably less snowfall, but we can still get snow events even during El Nino years. So this is kind of just a fun thing to look at. Don't take it 100%. And then here's the seasonal precipitation outlook, showing above average precipitation chances for much of California and Nevada. This is kind of also this strong El Ninos tend to also bring above average precipitation to parts of the Southwest US. So this kind of makes sense for them to show this. And they also show maybe some slightly below average precipitation for parts of eastern Washington and northeastern Oregon, but generally mostly near normal. So sometimes a lot of times El Nino will bring some below average precipitation, but right now they're showing around normal, which that's kind of to be expected at this range. So we'll just continue to watch this. Well, that's it for this video. I hope everybody enjoyed watching this video and found it informative. If you like to support the channel or just want to show that you like this video, just hit that like button down below. And also hit that subscribe button if you want to join the channel. And also hit that notification bell if you want to be alerted if any new videos I post. I may do another video this Sunday, so to see if we can get a better idea on when this cold air is going to start moving down over the Pacific Northwest and a lot of the West Coast, and see what systems we may expect with that. So I hope everybody's having a great day and have a great weekend. Take care and God bless.